Join our knowledgeable hosts as they dive into the captivating universe of comic books, movies, TV shows, and pop culture. Get ready for vibrant discussions and a shared enthusiasm for all things superhero and beyond. A comic podcast straight from the panels. This is Beyond the Capes.
All right, everyone, welcome back to another episode of Beyond the Cape podcast. With us today is friend of the podcast, Jeff. You might have seen him up on YouTube, MCU Bleeding Edge. Welcome to the show.
That's right, baby. Got to make sure I'm looking tight and fit over here, you know?
That's
you
right.
Represent.
And fun enough. I mean, I've been on one of the shows. We did Street Fighter, which was still one of my all-time favorite movies. I will die on that hill.
Was it one of your all-time favorite movie reviews?
Oh yeah, that was a fun time. Which is really fun because I know we got Lord of the Rings. I think the Two Towers is what I'm ready for. Which
people
is
have fun. People have fun on the Bleeding Edge, man. You know what I'm saying? Like, you know, that's another thing I take a lot of pride in. Going back to the studio talk, you know, it's nice to know people have fun.
Oh, definitely. It's definitely a fun show. If anyone hasn't listened to it, we're going to have everything at the end of this episode to get in, but you're definitely going to want to see it. What's more impressive is that the amount of shows you guys put out and what you cover, you guys do a very good job at covering everything from kind of our throwbacks, our classics to new stuff.
Yeah.
Your review of Shogun was always fun to watch.
Yeah, from a movie selection wise, we do lean heavily, like, you know, based off our ages, of course. You know what I'm saying, being a little bit older, you know, guys. Our picks do tend to we will review new films here and there, but for the most part, we stick to the early 2000s, the 90s, the 80s, right? Even some 70s stuff. But when it comes to TV series, yeah, we stay tuned in real time. You know, like I like to make sure we're covering stuff that's coming out and people are watching, you know, and I've always had a really good gut with calling these shows like Shogun, right? Where, like, you know, there really wasn't that much buzz when it was coming out, you know, and people didn't really know what to think about it. But all I needed to see was one of the trailers, man. Even though they made 3, it only took 1 for me. That's how it always is for me. And I just decided right there, I said, oh, we're covering that.
Yeah, no, that was a smart choice. I think that was a very slept down show. And then probably it wasn't until like episode 3 where everyone finally is like, oh man, we need to catch up. And you guys were.
I'm assuming that probably all that subscriber, the massive subscriber growth spike we've had in like the last month and a half or 2 months, especially in May, I think we had almost 5,000 new subs. Has to do probably somewhat with Shogun.
Yeah. So, again, I've seen your channel. I've been on your show. You guys have a very big following. How did this all come about? I mean, where do you start with building something like this?
Well, just to start off, just to introduce myself, respectfully, my name is Jeff Sloboda, Ryan. And, I do go by Jeff S. True Knowledge because although I'm not against using my public name, the bigger I do get, the more that I do kind of like what I prefer to straddle the line and start to like kind of maybe start to head in the direction of being more anonymous and going by True Knowledge and sticking by the Jeff S stuff and whatnot, you know, and kind of having to unfortunately let creators know to go away from using my full name just because I do have kids and, like at the same time too, I have a pretty big online presence, right? And I don't want my actual family name everywhere, you know, all over the internet. My name is Jeff Sloboda, and I'm from upstate New York, born and raised. I left there at 18 to go to college in North Carolina, High Point University. I dropped out there, lived in North Carolina for a couple of years. Met my first and only wife there when we were kids. Had my daughter Isabella with her. Moved to Louisiana for a while, and then from Louisiana moved over to Florida, and I've been in Florida ever since. So I left New York, at 18, and I've been in the South my entire adult life ever since. I live in Southwest Florida in Sarasota County, and my kids are older. My oldest has just turned 20. So, I'm not that old of a guy. I started, really young, don't be at Menace to South Central while drinking the juice, like where the father is younger than the son, that kind of
Pop,
stuff.
you're only 13. You can't be drinking.
Yeah. How about that scene? I love that scene where he has to read him the bedtime story, and he's jerking off, right?
The Playboy.
Or when he tells them, they have like the man discussion about condoms or safe sex or whatever, whatnot, and the younger father says to him, yeah, "Don't use condoms; they take away all the feeling."
Have you even had sex yet? No, I'm still waiting. Yeah, that movie is fantastic.
I reviewed that one time. It was fun. I reviewed it with somebody else on a different creator. But that's pretty much my story. Long story short, in terms of how that led up until like, the MCU's bleeding edge. I unfortunately, got divorced, and ended up raising my own daughter as a full custodial, single father parent, whatever you want to call it, with a lot of family help, of course. For over 10 years after me and my ex-wife split up. I think I raised her from age 5 to 13. The 10th anniversary of my traumatic brain injury that caused me to become disabled is in July. And I don't want to get into the incident that occurred, but basically I was severely injured one night in July of 2014, and it changed my life forever. I lost my career. All my friends walked away from me. You know what I'm saying? Like, you hear about with all TBI survivors, it's all the same story. You know what I mean? Family kind of estranges itself from you, because you're like a different person.
Yeah.
And you look rough, in the beginning too. You look rough. Like I'm very blessed. Look at me. I look fine. I talk fine. Right. But I do, if you notice, I do still have some slight impediments with my speech here and there. Where even like, all the time I put into speech therapy and what, all that and whatnot, couldn't correct some of a little bit of stuttering I have at times.
Yeah.
If you really pay attention, I will stutter on words. I have a hard time sometimes reaching in and grasping words from my index and my brain because of the neurological deficits that I deal with and the delays. I'm not able to compute as quickly as you can. So it's harder for me to reach in there and just grab a word and use it sometimes. I've got to kind of try to go to it. And if it's not there, off the cuff, where I'm at my best, as you know, go somewhere else. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But, in the meantime, it's because, a large part of my vocabulary is just lost. Or it's there kind of, but just to give you an idea. So I spent years recovering from what happened to me. I found content creation at a point in my life where I had very little purpose, and magically it suddenly gave me a new, different kind of purpose that tied heavily into me really getting into recovering. Finally, 4+ years into my traumatic brain injury, to where that the content creation tied into me also evolving in my life in general, and growing in my new life. And putting myself in a position now where, I'm not living in a bed anymore, like I did for a couple of years, like I'm a functioning, contributing, member of society, that when I walk down the street, you or no one else would ever think for a second that I was disabled, or that I had like, half the left hemisphere of my brain really doesn't function, right? You would never know, and I would never tell you. Do you know what I'm saying? So that's never been, my disability is something that I don't hide, but I've never wanted it to be out in the forefront of what we do on the bleeding edge or of any of my content. If it comes up in conversation, it comes up. But it's usually something that I only will talk about in a situation like this, or if it's on the phone with a creator like yourself or somebody else and we're just bullshitting or whatever, right? And you're just getting to know somebody. So of course it's going to come up then. You know what I mean? People are going to ask me questions, like about myself or what do I do and for a living and whatnot. So I've got to tell them. But I started from there, making individual content for years with a cell phone, like most creators start, right? It turned out I was good at it. It turned out I still had something left in the tank. I don't want to, get into it. But long story short, I put up some really, really massive stats on a like no-name TikTok style platform for a couple of years. with people off that platform being ones like Cyber, my co-host, I met on that platform called Rizzle. And I made short form individual 1 minute video content when it wasn't popular, when it wasn't like the bee's knees. I was making it. And that's all I made, right? But I always wanted to make long form content. I'm a talker. I like people. Making individual content is lonely. You know what I mean? Like, it's repetitive. It gets boring. Unless you're talking about or you're focusing on something you're very passionate about, right? Like you're really into, that to drive you or whatever. And if you lose that a little bit or completely, it's hard to keep on chugging. So I started the MCU's Bleeding Edge over 3 years ago because I just got spent from making individual content and making serious content like political content, economics, the stock market, across the board, just the tough stuff. Yeah. And it just beat me down. The wear and tear of the divisiveness of the back and forth politically between myself and other creators and whatnot that would go on daily, right? Being harassed and attacked.
Yeah.
By people, people trying to deplatform me every day, right? Like, like literally knowing that's happening every day, right? One thing I'll say, that hats off to Rizzle, the platform, they never bothered me once, or ever gave me a strike on anything. Or same thing with YouTube. We've never had a single regard. It's insane. It's like, you've been on the show, as insane as my shit is, and I say some crazy stuff. We've never had one problem with YouTube. Besides monetization of some of our content, sometimes they want to kind of mess with us a little bit, but you play the game with them and whatnot, and eventually you get your stuff monetized. Or worst case scenario, it's partially monetized, right? Because of the language and whatnot and all that. But I started the Bleeding Edge because I really wanted to do YouTube. I already started a channel on there, but it was small, covering politics, things like that, whatnot. I had already got my foot in the door. I wanted to podcast. And so those were my goals. I just said, you know what? I'm going to be a YouTuber. I'm going to be a podcaster. And that's all. Those were my only goals. No stat goals. No, none of that stuff. Become a podcaster. Become a YouTuber. Right? In whatever way. And so I went right in and I said, you know what? I'm going to change it up. I'm going to start making content about something that's going to bring people together. Right? So I can have shows where guests come on and we can talk and have discussions and shit like that. And have it be serious conversation sometimes, right? But have it be done in the right way so that there's no animosity, there's no negativity. It's not necessary for things to get ugly, right? It can be entertaining almost. I didn't think at that point, I wasn't thinking that far, Ryan, you understand. But I was, this is why in the beginning, kind of what I wanted was a common ground type of content. And I'm like, oh, what can I talk about or do? I already was making MCU content individually and killing with it. I was like, shit, I'll just start covering the MCU. It's so popular right now after Endgame, right? Yeah. I'll start the MCU's Bleeding Edge, and then it just evolved from there to what you now see it. What you've already explained and what you've already seen with it. To now where now the majority of our content is not Marvel related. Not that we don't cover the MCU, but as we already talked about in the studio, there just isn't any MCU content coming out really for like the last year and a half or so to cover.
Yeah, bit of a drought. And I was about to say, for everyone that goes through your YouTube, you have a lot of videos. Do you remember though, like that one specific video when you started the Bleeding Edge where you're like, oh man, I've made that jump to long form and like, wow, this video really kind of blew up. I think I got something here.
No, because we do everything live.
Okay.
You gotta take that into consideration. You know what I'm saying? Like, like when you do everything live, it's hard to explain really. It's hard to know how to word it, but for me, it's just a natural state, right? It only made sense to me. All the research that I did showed that short form content and live streaming were the two sections of digital content creation that were going to be going up over the course of the next 10 years, right? Year to year, that will continue to go up and be in higher and higher demand. So at that point, it made perfect common sense to me. I'm like, look, my strengths are authenticity and being off the cuff. What better atmosphere or dynamic at that point to bolster what I have left as strengths after losing so many of them, unfortunately, because of what happened to me. You really have to be willing to sit and really break yourself down and think about your strengths and weaknesses a lot more when you are impaired, physically in certain ways and and cognitively. Unfortunately, it's a reality. Me being a high functioning traumatic brain injury survivor, we're not rare, but like we're all at different levels, that actually blend in and can function like I am. Because there's others, some of them I've had on the channel before. I try to support the TBI community as much as I can. It's just tough, no, I never had that moment. The stats mattered when we hitting certain milestones.
Yep.
Was shocking, very humbling. You know what I mean? It was stuff I never thought was ever going to happen. Like that first 1,000 subs could never happen. Getting monetized, that was never going to happen. So like people maybe think I'm joking when I say that, or like, they've already heard that from 10 other people or whatever. I mean it. Like literally I had 2 index cards on my wall that were my 2 goals: be a podcaster, be on YouTube. That's all I had. Until I finally took them down when we got to like 30,000 subs on YouTube. I was like, I don't need these up anymore. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think you hit the goals now. You made
we're not really a podcast, but I mean, we have just on Spotify alone, I think we have like over 50,000 plays in our 3 years, right? Which isn't bad since we're not podcasters.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Right? And that's just off the one platform. No, I'll tell you, I never really had that moment. I'd say that for me, when I get that first plaque, it's not going to be, I'm not going to get that feeling on a show. It's going to be getting that plaque. Honestly, I don't want to sound, the word I'm trying to go with here. I don't want to come off the wrong way here with the objectivism or whatever, almost of that or whatever. I don't want to sound contradicted to how you would expect somebody to say something here or whatever, but I want to see that. I want that plaque. I want that 100,000 subscriber plaque, because that will really vindicate everything for me at that point. That will everything will go full circle, I think, at that point for me. To be as concise as I can, that will be my moment.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, and that's a great benchmark. I mean, I think you've seen a lot of people on YouTube, like when they get that first kind of plaque that comes through, like it kind of becomes real. Like you hit a big goal that someone physically sent you an award in a box to be like, hey, this is a big thing. Not a lot of people do that. And I think that's for sure.
I might cry when I get it. I honestly might cry. I don't cry very often, but I think I might honestly cry when I get it. To tell you the truth, or at least get teary eyed, because it'll be a very humbling experience. Like I'll tell you right now, like on the humble meter, I'll be like, it'll be up there. To like hold it and see it and everything and whatnot. And that luster will wear off pretty quickly. But still, though, it'll vindicate a lot for me, especially because of what I've been through. It will help me be able to formulate, new goals, right? And work off that, right? And that's good. It's good to be able to find something like that you could become, derive, goals off of.
Yeah, finding that next step. I know for us, it was always important. I mean, I didn't even think 100 people would ever subscribe to our Instagram where we get 50 downloads. And we're almost at, in our 1 year, 5,000 downloads. Hopefully by the end of this year, we'll hit 5,000 people on Instagram. We just started YouTube. So I never even thought this would happen.
I don't mean to cut you off, but you tell me what I think it's stupid. I won't lie, folks. I told the creator one time straight up that I thought he was stupid. But he told me that we're not in it for the stats, and some back and forth on X, Twitter, or whatnot about trying to collaborate or whatever. We're not in it for the stats or whatnot. When I flat out told the guy, look, he was being kind of like wishy-washy with me about guesting with us. Yeah. And I'm like, look, I'm the bigger creator here. Let's just be real. You know what I'm saying? Like, don't take that the wrong way, but because it's text or whatever. But the truth of the matter is that I'm a big creator. I reached out to you with good faith to bring you on to guest on my show to help, which is going to help your show. And I want that to happen for you. You know what I mean? I hope that happens, right? That's my goal. And I'm like, at that point, You should have some appreciation to the fact that I'm reaching out to you. You know what I mean? You're new, you're small, whatever. And he came at me with, like, I've told this for people before. Oh, well, we never don't do this for the stats anyway, and all this kind of stuff. That's all bullshit. I don't believe that for a second. If you don't pay attention to your stats and you don't look at your stats, then what metrics are you supposed to be able to use to in any way feel like or be able to gauge
exactly
whether you're gaining any traction with what you're doing? Because at the end of the day, you're making content. You want people to hear it and watch it and listen to it. If you don't have any type of criteria or bench, numbers to be able to see that you're getting somewhere with it, something to derive from, that it makes no sense to tell me that. What do you think? We don't do this. We don't care about stats. How can you not care?
No, everyone does. You can spend a whole year doing videos, and you could be passionate about it, and that's great if you did a lot of things with them. But if only 2 people are seeing them, then there's something you're doing that's just not working with, even if you're passionate about it. Sometimes you got to find a better way to relay it to the people, the way that they can understand it or they can relate to it.
You made a good point. I think any person who says that is just full of shit.
Yeah, you have to look at what you're doing, because that's the only way you're going to see. I know us getting followers on Instagram, to me, that means, all right, people are coming to our page and they like what we do. So something I'm doing is working. Let me find out more how I can keep that going. What do they like about it?
It means you're deriving engagement by the strategies that you're employing and whatnot, and everything, by what you're doing, the decisions you're making on the platform at the end of the day, right? That's what's happening.
Exactly. Yeah.
Because it's leading people to your page, to your profile and whatnot, and everything. And I don't know. I wouldn't know the percentages on Instagram as far as when people usually follow, but I'm assuming it's probably pretty high that it happens when they check out your actual main page is when they follow, right?
Yeah.
But I think that on YouTube, that the majority of it is of people who subscribe to it that way. They go on your channel, the home section right there, and see what's right on there, right? And then they decide to subscribe right there.
Yeah, I would say almost always that's face value. As soon as someone sees maybe even one video that they were looking for, but then they see all the others and they're like, all right, this person is making content that I can get behind. Let me follow. That's what you're going for. And like I said, you guys do it.
What were you going to say?
You guys do it really well. Like I said, you can go immediately to your page right now. And like I said, you got everything laid out really nice. So you could tell exactly what you're getting. At least to me.
Yeah, I've learned over time from other creators on YouTube, right? Which you can learn a lot from other YouTubers, you know that. Just watching what they do, you're better off spending your time watching other YouTubers for a couple hours than you are watching those tutorial videos on YouTube some guy telling you or woman telling you how to do YouTube. You're better off just going and looking at the YouTubers in your niche. You know what I'm saying? I'm not trying to go on a tangent, but they're at least close to your niche, and just look at their channels and look at their thumbnails, see how the layout of their your YouTube page and how it looks and whatnot, how the description and sounds, right? And copy that, try to copy in your own way that, what you're seeing. I've tried to find a lot of consistency with our thumbnailing, right? And titling to where it's very locked in from week to week to week. People, everything sounds very similar. Yeah. Even though there might be some parts that move, I'm getting it to where it's locked in it's almost formatted almost, and then of course it helps to be upgrading your thumbnail game, which I've really upgraded my thumbnail game in like the last probably 6 months, 8 months. I've really raised my thumbnail game and put a lot of time on Skillshare, right? Yeah. And watching Canva tutorials on YouTube, and just sat with my notebook and just took notes, and I learned a lot about Canva that I did not know existed by doing that.
Yeah, no, that's definitely a crazy tool. I've used.
No, and I appreciate you mentioning that the uniformity and whatnot and everything, and the fact that when you check us out, you can really get a pretty clear idea kind of what we do, but I'll tell you, when it comes to the subscribing, like a last point, It all depends on the kind of content you make too, because if you're doing reaction videos, which I make those sometimes here and there, just to change things up. With reaction videos and things like that, you are going to have more subscribers that do subscribe right there on your video.
Yeah.
Because it's just that style of content like that.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like, I know when I subscribe to reactors, I always do it that way.
Yeah, especially if you like the way that they react or the way they describe something.
Yeah,
for sure.
I don't need to go to their channel to, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah. No, I mean, that's the finest example too, is watching them in action, and that will tell you right there, then and there, how it's going to be.
Maybe it has something to do with music. Because it's music reaction stuff that I'm talking about. So maybe it has something to do with that genre.
Yeah, it's very possible. Especially when
it's interesting. No, it's fun to talk about this kind of stuff, isn't it? Talk shop or whatever.
Now the funny thing is, like I said, you guys do a lot of shows and movies. Do you have one that you prefer to go through? I mean, obviously, if it's a movie you've already seen, it's nice to talk about that, because I love going through.
What do you mean by prefer? Like something we've already covered, or is there something I look for?
Like if I said you could either, if you had the choice of two videos, you have to do one or the other. You could either review a new show, watch the first 2 episodes, review it, or you could pick one of your, or like the top 5 of these 80s movies and review that and do like a roundtable discussion on either or. Do you have a one that you're like, I just prefer the movies because maybe I've seen them enough times, I feel like I really want to discuss them?
No, it all depends on timing and feel, right? Because you got the year is broken down into quarters.
Yeah.
Like even right now, right? I don't know when the release dates are on several TV shows that we are going to cover. I know we are, right? But I have no idea when they're actually going to release, so I can't put out full schedules for the whole year. It would make no sense, right? I'm going to have to, when I get release dates, then I'll start to actually reach out to creators like you and other people and ask them if they want to come out and do some Dune Prophecy with us, or do the Penguin HBO Max series with us, right? But until we get release dates on them, I have no idea when we're going to cover this stuff, So in the meantime, I guess my preference is to make sure that we're always covered in the TV direction. Yeah. Because movies are easy. Movie reviews, picking movies for movie reviews are very easy. That is one of those ones where with us, we really do. I, more than my co-host Cyber, and the one that actually thinks more analytically with my picks and thinks about popularity and thinks about anniversaries and things like that and whatnot. And I just started doing that and thinks about, like the fact that we're doing, for instance, Lord of the Rings, right?
Yep.
We're doing the Nolan trilogy. Obviously, it's not just that I love those films. It's because it's freaking the Lord of the Rings and it's the Nolan trilogy. I'm hoping a lot of people like it are going to want to come watch our shit, right?
For sure.
That's why I picked those movies. Let's be honest here. I wanted to get the maximum bang out of our buck, right?
No, for sure.
Whereas Cyber just picks the stuff he likes, like Deep Rising, just random 80s movies and stuff and whatnot, which I don't care. Back to the Future and all this kind of stuff and whatnot. It's cool, Yeah. But one of us has got to be on top of like actually caring about, the zeitgeist or the pulse of YouTube and its audience. And so I found myself in that role and I guess I'm the one that has to kind of try to stay current to some extent. But when it comes to the TV series, that's our bread and butter. That's what I enjoy doing the most. I enjoy putting the panels together. I enjoy seeing all the new faces come in and out, right? Come on, then come back on a couple episodes later, then come on again, maybe for the finale. I love that familial, kind of camaraderie kind of vibe you get when you have that vibe going on, where you've got something like Shogun, where we had several guests that did multiple episodes, and you kind of grow as a team. You kind of come together.
Yeah.
And so it really adds another layer to the shows because there's friendship involved.
Yeah.
And camaraderie involved. And certain people, like I'm sure you understand, want to be on certain shows with us just because other certain people are going to be on them.
Yeah. And I can imagine it's fun having those people and being like, this person hated this character episode 1. They stood on this video and said that they would never like this person. And then later on the season, they're like, all right, well, I might have to retract, and just kind of watching opinions grow on a show is nice.
Well, you already noticed I call people out and bust balls pretty heavily. Like whenever I catch anything even close to that happening, it's going down. Like I'm going to sauce you up real quick. If Andre's a pop culture guy, does stuff like that all the time. Something is his favorite, like in episode 1, and then in episode 8, it's like the worst thing that ever happened to the episode or whatnot. And I'm like, Andres, you son of a bitch. Just 7 weeks ago, this was your most favorite TV episode you ever saw in your life or whatever. You know, he's classic, like one of those people that like literally has a new favorite everything, like every week. It's hilarious, you know. This movie's my favorite. This is my second favorite movie. I'm like, Andres, last month you said 3 or 4 times that like different movies or TV shows or whatever were like your second or third favorite. How many favorites can you possibly have?
Well, you got number 2 and then 2A and then 2B, and you just little substacks.
During doing Shogun, if I could change the question up and say, what have I so far this year? What has been the most enjoyable and the most challenging and interesting and also like entertaining for me as an audience member too? Taking in the show was Shogun, without question. Yeah. It's been so far. We're about to start the House of the Dragon.
Yes,
that can be very interesting, right? Coming off Shogun, I'm glad we had a little bit of a break, but it's going to be taking us right back into another world, like in a very similar, you know, historic in times, you know what I mean? You know, set in the past, you know, with great writing, you know, great acting. You know, it's going to be kind of a fight between those two series. They're kind of like for the like overall for the year, TV wise, like you know, when it comes to the Emmys and the award ceremonies and all that. Those are the two front runners to like really like, you know, nab the most awards basically, right? You figure are those two shows. I really enjoyed covering Shogun. House of the Dragon is going to be great because we interconnected that with a guy you haven't met before over on the Bleeding Edge named Jermaine over on his YouTube channel. We connected the House of the Dragon review series with his channel to where we're going to use my StreamYard. I'm going to produce the shows, but him and I are going to rotate moderation like Cyber and I do. We're going to host them out in rotation. And he's bringing in his people from his team, who I've met some of them before. We've known each other for years, me and Jermaine. He's a gay black teacher over in Texas. And a couple of his people did Willow with us. That garbage ass TV series, Willow. That Cyber picked. The one time I let Cyber pick a TV show, it was Willow. So some of his people came on. So I already know some of his team. They're all teachers, basically. That's the whole. They're all of them. Yeah, and it's amazing how many teachers and lawyers and doctors we have on our panels. People would never believe it, but we have a lot of them. Hey, anybody of any kind can be a nerd, you know. So, we're splitting up the show to where you know all the content's going to be on both channels, right? And we're going to interconnect it. So that we're both putting the shows up on our channels. Everything's going to be tied to the hip. And he's going to bring his team, and I'm going to have my team. And we're going to go roll deep right from jump on episode 1 with a 6-person show. 5 people on the panel for House of the Dragon. I already did the first season. We never had more than 4 people on the show. So
that could be awesome. Royal Rumble
might be a long show. But I'm excited.
Yeah,
it's fun. I enjoy it. Do you enjoy the aspect of how like you know I know we didn't have a lot we didn't have a really big panel when you came on, but you know from you know seeing other content and whatnot that we do have a lot of big panels sometimes. Our first Acolyte one, I think we had 8 people, Cyber moderating with me you know me and six other people. What do you think about that? You know, do you enjoy that kind of dynamic?
I think it's worth it because you get so many people with different views, and it's funny you bring up House of the Dragon because a lot of people at work don't even want to talk with me about it because they're watching it as the show, and I'm like, well, I read the book of A Song of Fire and Blood, so I already know how this is going to play out. This is the fight scenes I want to see. I hope this gets translated. And they're like, yeah, no, I don't want this to happen. That sounds terrible. Don't even tell me about it.
I've watched the YouTube videos that explain the books.
Yeah. Do you find it harder then to like with that kind of content out there and then making a review, like trying to keep like some biases out of, well, like I know what happens in the book, but I want to kind of look at the show with with fresh eyes, because obviously they're making the show to kind of appeal to a more massive audience.
Let me explain my relationship with Game of Thrones and House of the Dragons. Come back at me with that question after this. I got hurt. I watched the first season of Game of Thrones and then I got hurt.
Okay.
I didn't watch television except for I stuck with The Walking Dead for another couple of years, but I didn't watch television after the TVI for years. So like obviously I did not stick with the show. I did not watch Game of Thrones. But what got me into Game of Thrones was the YouTube videos of the battle scenes, right? Yes. And like the reaction videos to them, because I like reaction videos, like I told you. And then the lore, all those long-ass lore, 2 hour long, hour and a half long, 3 hour long lore videos that all those really great YouTubers make. I'll sit and listen to those things in the background for hours. I love that crap. And that lore sucked me in so bad that's when I came across the Dance of the Dragon and all that kind of stuff and whatnot and all that. Now, I missed out on Game of Thrones as a content creator. At this point, I'm already reviewing TV shows and whatnot and all that. I've just spread my wings and explained to Cyber that we no longer going to just cover Marvel anymore. We're going to cover anything now, right? He didn't like it at first. He thought it was a bad move. Same thing would be doing reaction videos. He's like, it's going to go against our brand. We're the MCU's bleeding edge. I'm like, no, Cyber, just chill, man. It's just changing things up a little bit. It's going to be good. It's going to grow our audience, and it did. And that's whatever. I was right. He was wrong. Who gives a shit? You know what I'm saying? Believe me, there's been plenty of times where I've been wrong about some stuff too, and that I don't want to mention. And Cyber's been right, that are embarrassing. But but in general, so we covered the House of the Dragon, and it was a tough series to cover. We never covered anything that serious before. That was our first, big drama type deal, and it just sucked me in, man. Like, what I'm saying? It just blew me away because I love HBO series to begin with. I love what they do. They produce such great. I love adult-oriented content. I do. I'm an adult. That's who I am. That's why all our stuff is adult-oriented, right? Like, I'm not a kiddie kind of guy. I like, and I actually enjoy dialogue-driven TV series.
Yeah.
That are especially that is a richer story. Especially that are set in different time periods and stuff like that and whatnot. Then you add in witchcraft and all that kind of stuff and like all that. Oh man, come on now. And incest, dragons, like, come on, bro. You know what I mean? Good acting, right? Like good writing. So it just sucks you right in. And so like, House of the Dragon just like for me was like my vindication that I didn't get to review Game of Thrones. I'm not going to go back and re-review it now. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? Like and do that kind of deal. But I got to do House of the Dragon, which kind of in a way like it made it up for me a little bit. So go back now. And what was the question?
If like hearing the lore or kind of knowing the background to like a Song of Fire and Blood, if you try to like separate that lore and incorporate it into your reviews,
I needed to facilitate my role on the show. At the end of the day, even when Jermaine moderates the show and hosts, or even when Cyber moderates or whatnot, I run the show. You know what I'm saying? Like when we do interconnected series, like we have before with other YouTubers or other creators, I run the show. You know what I'm saying? Like it's never talked about or discussed. It doesn't have to be. You know what I mean? Like everyone already knows my role and what I do. So they already know when we come into something like that and whatnot, that I'm going to want control to some extent. I'm going to work with somebody, right? I did with Jermaine, right? 50-50 on how many people we could have on. You know what I mean? I didn't have to let him moderate. I could have hosted all the shows myself. But I would rather switch it up. It'd be more fun, I thought. You know what I'm saying? And whatnot. Definitely. Plus good for his team and his people, because we're used to him moderating and hosting, right? And it also gives me a chance to be freed up and talk more, and not have to be so dedicated. But considering the fact that I need to moderate these shows, the House of the Dragon, the first season, I moderated all 11 episodes or 10 episodes, right? That was a lot of work, man. Having to rewatch those episodes more than once to be able to take notes on that second one with the length of them and everything and whatnot,
That's a long night.
And all the shit I was already covered and watching at that point. She-Hulk, the Rings of Power, like I was already covered 3 other TV shows. So like I needed that more, right? To be able to bring that into the show and incorporate it here and there, just to kind of make things interesting. And also to illuminate and explain things to people that the show didn't do a good enough job, I felt like maybe covering. You get what I'm saying? or explaining certain things. Knowing the lore, you're able to jump in and say, oh, hey, L, or hey, hey, Dom from Talking TV Podcast. The reason why so-and-so did that is because of this. And I know that because I didn't read the book, but I've watched the lore videos that covered all of this whole thing. I know how this ends, all of it, like you said. Are you biased? Of course you're biased. Yes, you are. Like, in terms of being a fan, like maybe being more leaning towards certain characters.
Oh, for sure.
And all that kind of stuff, and like wanting certain outcomes to happen or whatever, maybe. Yeah, you're kind of biased, but you're biased at everything you cover anyway.
Yeah. No, definitely.
It's like covering the MCU or Marvel, where the MCU's bleeding edge. Of course, we're all biased.
Oh yeah, Damon for sure will. Despite how creepy he might be, his fight scene in this next season, if they do it right, is going to be fantastic.
Most definitely. So, no, I mean, I'm stoked for the House of the Dragon. I don't really get excited until we start doing the recaps. So until we do that, that first show comes up and we roll in, and it's studio time, right, and the lights go on and all that and everything, and it's showtime, then it hits me, and the excitement comes and the adrenaline comes. Like it's game time.
Definitely.
Right? But right now I'm just I'm whatever. It's a week away. You know what I mean?
Yep. It's coming up. I can't wait. Now before we get ready,
I was going to say it's perfect. We're doing our reviews on Monday nights too, with the episodes dropping on Sunday, so it's going to work out great.
Yeah, it's going to be. That's probably the best thing, is lining it up that way. Gives everyone the chance to watch and then kind of really sit overnight and think about what they saw.
Well, they're dropping 3 episodes in one shot, though, aren't they? To start off.
I thought I heard 2, 3.
I think it might be. It's either 2 or 3. And
I better call them to work.
That's the thing about it, is that we're not going to be able to stay in real time. I can't. Jermaine's, and his team schedule and my team schedules, I can't just get them in to crank out 3 episode reviews night after night just to get caught up. You know what I mean? So we're going to fall behind real time. Yeah. But that happens.
Yeah. No, I mean, and with a show like that, I feel like people, even I could go back and still watch Game of Thrones YouTube video, even though I've seen the show, I've read them. Still waiting for the final book, but I could still go back and watch a video and appreciate the review of something, especially because I never know if someone's going to add that one little detail that I definitely probably missed, especially in Game of Thrones. There's so many little nuances.
We very rarely ever do double episode reviews just to get caught up to real time. We just don't like it because it takes so much time. Yeah. It's our shows are already long to begin with. You're talking 2 episodes of a show. That's 3 hours plus of live stream, right? It's just a lot to throw at people, and to cover. So our audience, for the most part, is just used to what we do. So we don't worry about being on real time.
Definitely.
To some extent. But I'm sorry, I did not mean to cut you off. Where were you going a minute ago, sir?
You're just before we wrap things up, I think the biggest thing is, like I said, a lot of people always want to know, for someone that's gotten to like your level of, I would say, success, especially like I said, just looking at your page, you can definitely tell you've really put the work in. What if you had to share like the one piece of advice, like above all else, to a new creator, and you're like, this will help catapult you ahead probably a little bit quicker if you follow this one specifically? Do you have that piece of advice that's like your?
That's really tough to narrow down to one thing. That's a broad question. You know what I'm saying? That's the kind of thing that, you get where I'm going with this. That's the kind of thing where you and I could do a 20-minute back and forth. You know what I mean? I could run down a list of things that I didn't know at first and had to learn the hard way, right? Or didn't pay attention to.
Yeah. Do you have one that sticks out the most?
Yeah. One that I've said before in the same situation when I've been asked questions like this on other shows. And I've been asked I've been on shows that actually did the whole an hour and a half of just talking about how to help other new creators and whatnot on YouTube. What I would say is especially if you're starting off and you're new and you either don't know what direction you want to go with your content yet, right? Like you can't lock down your niche, you can't narrow it down, and that's impeding you. Or, maybe you're camera shy, that's impeding you, whatever it might be. If you're putting off starting your channel, right, in any way, shape, or form, or if you've only put one video up and then it's just sitting there 6 months later, just put yourself in the damn game. If you're going to do YouTube, you got to get in there, right? Like being behind is not going to help you, right?
Yeah.
Like, like things are changing every day. Technology's changing. The systems are changing. The algorithm changes every couple months, right? Like, YouTube changes, trends change, right? The better, sooner you can get on YouTube and start putting content up of some kind, the better for you. Even if it's shit, you know what I'm saying? Like, just to be frank, even if you're just throwing up whatever, start off with something simple. If you can't figure out what you want to do, if you can't narrow it down, and that's your biggest impediment, or that's keeping you from putting more content out than one episode a month or whatever, do some reaction videos, like I mentioned earlier, right? Do some reaction videos to something you like music, a band you like, or look around at the trends on YouTube and see who's hot and what the reactors are reacting to right now. That's getting good views. What bands are getting traction? And even if you're not a big music fan, do some reaction videos and smile, right? And just react to the music, and people will watch it. If you like sports, react to sports and talk about that, right? People will watch that. You'll get some views on it right now. You'll get some subscribers, get some traction, and it'll get you in front of the camera. So that get you some experience out there making content, to where when you do kind of lock things in and you do finally figure out, hey, this is going to be my meat of what I want to do on my YouTube channel. You've got some experience under your belt. You're diversifying yourself. You're making different types of content, right? And you've already established something to where you have some subs to work with, right? And you've gotten some traction. So when you do put some of that meat content out, there's going to be more of an audience to pick up that initial content. That's pretty much all I would say.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think that's always a great one. Because it's like with investing, they always tell you, the best time to invest was yesterday. The second best time is right now. If you made up your mind that you want to make it on YouTube doing shorts, but you just can't quite figure out how to do them or something, like you're stuck, you're hitting a wall, right? Like you made a couple and or you're making them and it's just not working, like we talked about earlier. Change it up. Just change it up. Do something different. Do some live streams. Get a buddy, like like one of your friends or something or whatever to jump on with you and do some live streams and just talk some shit. Just talk about something random. Talk about sports. Talk about pop culture. Talk about the MCU, something easy, Star Wars or something, right? Yeah.
The Acolyte right now is popular. Talk about the Acolyte, right? People will watch it. You'll get views.
For sure.
You know what I'm saying? Like, and it'll get your gears going. And not only will it get you more experience again in front of the camera and under your belt, but also at the same time, it'll give you a chance to interact with other people in your content. So it's not just you. And then on top of that too, maybe when you do find your meat again with your shorts, right? You might want to sprinkle in some live streams along with those shorts just to give your audience something else to work with.
Definitely. No, that's great advice. So for everyone listening who's interested, just watch what you guys do. Like I said, I'm going to be on the show again in July. Can't wait for it. What's the schedule like? It's Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays, correct?
Mondays, Wednesdays, and Friday evenings. Yes.
Here, let me. Now that we learn, let's put you up.
We live on Mondays at 10 p.m. Eastern, 7 p.m. Pacific. Wednesdays and Fridays, 9:35 p.m. Eastern, 6:35 p.m. Pacific.
Perfect. And there's the page, the MCU Bleeding Edge. You can find them on YouTube. I know you guys are on Instagram as well. I believe it's the same.
You see what I was talking to you about with the guest appearances thing?
Yeah.
That's what I was telling you. I can show you how to do that. So you can add that to your homepage. That way, when people go on there and whatnot, they'll actually see like the video whenever you're on the show with us or anybody else. They'll see that.
For sure. No, that's going to be great. Yeah. So everyone that wants to, again, you want to have a fun time reviewing great shows, great movies. This is a fun, like I said, they're fun people to watch. They do a great job. Like I said, your co-host Cyber, everything was fun last time I was on. I really enjoy your guys' commentary on the videos. And just thanks for coming on and talking about your story.
Most definitely. Most definitely. I appreciate the opportunity. And sorry if I'm a little bit long-winded, but you know me, sir. I'm not, as we talked about before, I'm not hard to figure out. I like to talk.
And that's what this business is all about, telling a story.
There you go. No, sir, I appreciate coming on. Thank you for spending the time with me. It was really good. I'm happy to be on. I'm glad we were able to put this together. Hats off and shout out to everybody that actually, hangs with and supports the Beyond the Cape podcast. I if anything, support their YouTube channel, subscribe. Don't worry about us. We'll be okay. Ryan's good people. And, I want to see him do the best. So, if anything, I hope that coming on with you, which was a really enjoyable time for me, will maybe benefit your channel a little bit.
For sure. No, thank you. Everyone listening, you can find this video on our YouTube channel. You could also listen to it wherever you get your podcast from. Spotify, Apple, iHeartRadio, Amazon. We're on it all.
Same thing over here, too. I forgot to mention that. Same deal. We are an audio podcast, so you can find us on all the same platforms.
Perfect. All right, everyone. Thanks for listening. Have a good night.